I'd like to welcome you to another impromptu segment of Majesty in the Moment. It's all about the power of the present moment. And I am Majesty AliNICOLE WOW, and certainly looking forward to being with you during this time. Those of you who are new to this segment, I just come forth as I feel guided, sometimes with a topic that I feel guided to share about, but not limited to that particular focus. It's just maybe a jump start. And then majority of the time, I just come forth and just hit record and see what's going to take place in this impromptu segment. I can break off into motivational speaking, into doing some literal training or some type of activation. Sometimes I have clients that participate in this segment, and we do a workspace session so that you can benefit from what someone else is being trained on or exploring during that time. So during this time, what I'm feeling guided to talk about is really focusing forward. And I recently published an article on Medium, and it actually is about this particular focus. So I thought that I would just talk a little bit about this, at least starting off. Again, could break off into something else, but being able to put your focus on what's emerging, even though you are grounded in the present, so to speak. But the name of the article, I will make sure that I'll have a link to it in the description, but it's called Focus Forward Now, the Art of Futuring Ahead in the Present Without Looking Back. So one of the reasons why I felt guided to come and share about this particular topic is because this is the time that you really need to be moving forward and looking ahead and not looking back. Now, there is value to a certain extent in looking back as it relates to just reflecting on some of the wisdom and lessons learned that are going to apply to your now and possibly be able to serve you in your next emerging phases. But you don't want to keep looking back over the past, even, let me say this, even if it was good, because that's something I actually talked about in the article. And I also linked another article that was by Arnold Schwarzenegger that talked about don't look back and don't wish for something from the past, even if it was great, because you forfeit the fortune in the present that is going to be able to create your next now moments, which is the future, so to speak. All right. And again, it's important to put your focus on the forward momentum, is because anytime you start backtracking, it's kind of like creating a barrier to move yourself forward. And this may sound weird and a little bit woo-woo, but it's not. It's like looking back throws you into like a different realm. And you want to be able to be present and then be able to keep, again, moving forward. A lot of people talk about, well, I'm trying to move forward and I can't move forward because I have this in the way, or this is, and the thing about it, how much focus are you really putting on the past? How much focus are you really putting on the past as you're trying to move forward? So I'm pausing there for a reason, because I want you to think about that. How much do you bring up the past? And I'm going to throw an interesting twist in there, because even your present situation, especially if it's contrasting, is all past. It is. It emerged from something that led up to something from the past, right? So we have to be careful, because, or mindful, I should say, is knowing how to do what I call futuring, all right? Futuring forward, but you're grounded in the present, all right? And being able to actually look at your timetable, not in a linear way, okay? Where it all is just one experience. Now, when you're embodying it that way, it's not really looking back in the past, so to speak. It is just taking the evolution and moving it forward. Everything builds upon what was, so to speak. But there's always the new opportunity to lay a new foundation, to have a new jumpstart. Sometimes your past experiences, even good, are necessarily the jump off that you need for what's emerging. Sometimes there's something new that is springing up. And the book of Isaiah in the 43rd chapter, around the 18th and 19th verse, it talks about a new thing, God doing a new thing, and asks the question, do you not perceive it? Do you not see it springing up? Well, a lot of times people don't see it springing up because they're distracted. And I've talked about this actually in another impromptu segment where even that passage talks about forgetting the former things. But if you're not willing to forget and forgive in the former things, then you're not going to be able to really see what's springing up. You're not going to be able to see what's springing up. Again, the past serves a significant purpose, but it's how it is positioned. And elements from the past are going to be positioned in the present and the future, not as past occurrences, but as expansion. It's just part of the grander plan, so to speak, all right? So we just have to be mindful, all right? And I talked even in the article, I'm not going to read it because I'm placing it, the link in the description so that you can read it. But there is a part where I talked about you have to be intentional about placing your attention on focusing forward from your current position so that you create the next now, which I call the next now. That's the future, all right? And being able to do this from a place of clarity, alignment, and fulfillment. Now, why is this important? Because you want to have clarity. Doesn't mean you're going to have all of the steps lined out, so to speak, but you will be clear in terms of what the core objective and intentionality needs to be as it relates to the forward momentum. So yeah, you don't want to spend too much time continuously looking back, but you also don't want to spend too much time even rehearsing so much of what is in the present. Now, my own personal confession, even recently, I actually found myself doing that when that's not like really a part of something that I do, but no one is above reproach, so to speak. No one's perfect. We are all on a journey, continuously evolving, right? So though I don't try to put emphasis on past things, but sometimes there are episodes, if you will, different dynamics that seem to keep regurgitating the past, even if it's people talking about it, they can't come out of their past, but you're trying to stay focused. And because that is part of the present dynamics, then sometimes you can get into, well, things could have been different based on different actions being taken, right? And I found myself kind of in that where it is true what I was saying, but I think I spent a little bit too much time kind of even looking at the present dynamics and knowing that this could have been different. But we're in the power of the present moment, so we move forward from here. But sometimes it's a little bit challenging, so to speak, to move forward when you know lessons have not been learned by other people who are also trying to move forward, or they're part of your dynamics, you know, in the moment. So when you know they haven't learned the lessons, you know that there's the potential for a repeat offense as it relates to a particular area, right? But at the same time, even though that is true, the focus doesn't need to really be there. The focus needs to be on what can you control. So that's where I had to revert my energy back to, is I can control what I do and take guidance according to what my relationship and connection is with life, with God, with myself, but not responsible. And these are things I know. You all know this. I'm not saying anything new here, but sometimes no matter how masterful, so to speak, you become in areas, you go to another level, sometimes you will be revisited by another level of that lesson, so to speak. And so even if you can get taken away for a moment of something that you know to be true and solid, you can always re-ground yourself, reposition yourself. And that's what I had to do in this situation, was let me not rehearse this, even though it is blatantly obvious that this could definitely be repeated. But again, it's not going to be repeated by me, because I'm not the one doing that particular action. But again, you cannot control that. You can definitely pray for people. You can set a good example, and also try to advise them, so to speak. But sometimes you have to back off and just allow things to kind of organically unfold. There's time for intentionality, for sure. I don't believe in sitting back being passive about things that you need to be actually applying some intentional action, right? Action taking, around. But again, not getting caught up in the different dynamics, right? So again, I was just sharing just a little bit from just my own recent experience of having to reposition the focus, because again, all of that is still regurgitating past, and we don't realize that it's subtle, but it's very significant in terms of what it does, even on a vibrational level. And I'm not getting into anything woo-woo. I'm just really stating this in a practical way. There's a reason why Paul says, forgetting those things that are behind and pressing on for the greater prize, so to speak, looking ahead, all right? But being able to do it from this powerful place of the present, because I can get into so much around this, because I've got a variety of different teachings as it relates to this area. But we talk about, you here, so to speak, not focusing on the past and not focusing on the future, because the power is in the now. That is true. But you actually do have to have a vision for where you're going. And the Bible talks about, without a vision, people perish. They perish for a lack of awareness, a lack of knowledge, a lack of applied knowledge, but certainly not having some type of vision. And I've talked about this, even in other segments, where you do need a vision, even if that vision expands and shifts and changes. You do need to have some idea of where you're headed, where you're going. And people call them goals, they call them dreams. You can wrap it in any type of casing that you desire. But basically, it's that you have to be futuring to know how to apply yourself, what you're moving toward, right? So again, this is important. You don't want to keep looking back, regurgitating, rehearsing the past, or even the present contrast, or different things. You want to place your attention in, how do I, from this point, jump off to something new? What is emerging? What is emerging? That's a question you should always be asking yourself, because then you know how to have the clarity, then how to accurately align yourself, and then you can have completion and fulfillment as it relates to whatever the dynamics is. Of course, check in your spiritual connection and ask for divine guidance. You can never get away from that. I mean, if you do, that's not going to be good, because that's like driving a vehicle that has a bad alignment. Or really trying to drive a vehicle that doesn't have an engine. You have to have the source of what's going to make the vehicle go. So you have to be connected to the source of life, that's animating who you are. Live, breathe, and have your being within that connection. So yeah. So I'm just seeing if I'm going to talk any more about not looking back, because like I mentioned, I'm putting the article in the description, and you can read more about being able to practice the art of futuring and sort of going from there. So let me just be present to see if there's something else that wants to come up, not necessarily around that particular topic. It could be something else. It could be a jump off. So before closing out here, I'll just, just be present and see. So actually something that is coming up is about being able to focus on yourself as a work of art and understanding that you are continuously, as they say, a work in progress. There's always going to be some area of your life that's under reconstruction. Or as I teach even in my human metamorphosis work, that there's always going to be some part of your journey that's always in metamorphosis, even when you have come into completion and fulfillment or evolution around a particular aspect of life that you've been waiting on. But there will always be some element that's still cocooning. It's just part of the journey. So when looking at yourself as a work of art, you are more than just one masterpiece as well. You're more than just one masterpiece. So the reason why this is important is because if you get too focused on the masterpiece that you've become, or working towards, so to speak, you could be distracted from another aspect of you that is really trying to come forth as a work of art. And you have to know how to simultaneously, I should say, play from both sides of the track, always what's emerging and what's kind of, steady as you go, so to speak. So you want to be able to know that. But in terms of you being a work of art, the reason why it's important to focus on this is because how you define yourself and your identity is critical, because it also is how other people will treat and respond to you. In most cases, all right? In most cases, they say the better you treat yourself, the better others will treat you as well. How you view yourself is the way that others will view you. Again, the different schools of thought, I don't believe that anything is always going to be just a one-dimensional focus, so to speak. There are going to be times where people are just not going to like you. They're not going to see eye to eye with you, so to speak. They're not going to see you in your true value, your true potential, all right? And that could be just a fraction of people, but long as you're treating yourself right and and you're continuously working on that masterpiece of you, you could care less. You could care less about what others are thinking, and especially, and I would just say this, certain breed of people, like I don't even take into consideration anything that you're talking about, because I look at the fruit and I look at the source. So you have to be able to check that too, as you're emerging. But being a masterpiece, your own work of art, so to speak, and focusing on yourself is not to buoy yourself up, so to speak, but it is to put things in the right perspective, all right? You are uniquely created, as the Bible says, fearfully and wonderfully made. So you are a unique design, okay? Very custom made, so to speak. But again, we are very multidimensional individuals. And again, I don't mean this in a woo-woo way. It's very practical. It's that there are different levels of who you are. As I said before, you are more than just one work of art. You're more than just one masterpiece on display. So if you liken this to looking at yourself like you are this art gallery, well, you don't go into an art gallery and there is just like one painting or one sculpture, one work of art, right? No, there's multiple variations of artwork, and that's how you are. So if I want to expand this awareness around that jump off topic, it would be definitely focusing on the art gallery of you, where you contain multiple masterpieces and people come to see those masterpieces. Yes, maybe there are some signature masterpieces or works of art, so to speak, of you that people focus more on, right? But it's not the whole of you, just that one. It's not the whole of you. Different things will get more attention and some won't. But it is time to bring forth the whole of who you are, right? And be able to let people into that art gallery of who you are. And of course, I'm going to pump this for sure because of being multi-missioned and don't believe in a one-dimensional focus of anything, especially as it relates to being able to showcase the different talents that you have and being able to let all of life come through you in multiple formats that people can benefit from, all right? So you're never just one-dimensional in anything. So again, before closing out, you are not just a masterpiece, right? You are the art gallery that has multiple masterpieces. Now, here's the deal. There are certain aspects of your masterful piece-ness that need to be more expressed during this time. So a good focus would be to be intentional about asking yourself, being present, what work of art or works of art are ready to be expressed? What works of art from me are ready to be expressed? I'm ready to open up my art gallery to show multiple facets of who I am, but what are the signature pieces right now that I need to really be working on? I need to be getting those ready for display or bringing more attention, to those, right? So some of you have these gifts that you're neglecting. And when I say neglecting, doesn't mean you're not using them, but you're actually not bringing them to the world in a much more expansive way or letting it be known. Like some of you are really great cookers, at cooking, and some of you are great musicians, but you're not really showing that. You may show up at your job doing the work that you do, but then nobody knows that you actually can sing or play a certain instrument. They don't know that you're good at, a particular aspect, and maybe it's time that that's known, or maybe that you step out and do something in that area a little bit more expansive than you have been doing. Again, it's going to be individualized for each of you, just how that plays out, but you definitely want to take the time to be present to focus on that. What masterpieces are still in the works and what masterpieces are ready to come forth? What is ready to be displayed? And I do have even some works around that particular aspect, more so in the branding area, but it still can be beneficial. The information can be beneficial to anyone. And I will make sure that that is in the description. So I think I'm going to bring this impromptu segment to a close. It's been great just being able to be here in the space and just to share what's coming up. We started out talking about focusing forward and not looking back, not paying too much attention to the what wasness, but being intentional about focusing on what is and is to come, what's emerging, so to speak, and putting our attention there and getting the clarity and alignment for the fulfillment of that aspect. So we spent time talking about that, then segued into talking about you focusing on the masterpiece of you, and then kind of the expanded context around that was now you looking at yourself as this art gallery with multiple masterpieces of who you are, and now being intentional about which parts want to come forth, what's still in the works, your work of art, so to speak, what's still in the works, but what's ready to be displayed. But basically now being able to open up to the whole of who you are and opening that up to the world at large, so to speak, however that plays out. All right, so as always, be sure to check the description, and there will also be the playlist of other segments. So it's been my absolute total delight to be here with you in the space. And as always, I am wishing you the absolute best. Take care and stay blessed.